Welcome, everyone. As I said in the last meeting, I think it was, I'm going to be out of town for several weeks. And so we're kind of at this critical threshold right now. We just finished the first 7 parts of this, well, 3x, 21x it's sort of thing, rampage that I'm on with this work. My instinct tells me that we should pause here for a moment, okay? Because I don't want to break the continuity. I want to start this work of the next 7 lessons with you that has to do with the cosmology of things. But I want to be able to have a straight through run at it instead of it being kind of a syncopated run, okay? So the next 4 weeks, which is the amount of lessons that we have upcoming before I depart, will be kind of open, a bit up in the air, not up in the air from the standpoint of unorganized, yeah, but certainly unrehearsed and unplanned. So I'd like to just kind of, if you're willing to do so with me, I'd like to just see what wants to show up and have a go today. Okay.
Okay.
Sound fair?
Yes.
Yeah. Trust me, when we start working through this cosmology, you're going to look back and thank me that you had some continuity. If you think you've had lessons on the ray of creation and the universe and what's at the other end of the starry worlds, you haven't yet. So you'll enjoy being able to have that flow of things. Okay. So I'll start off today then just kind of by asking, what's in you? What's got you lit up lately? Is being lit up an important part of your process these days? Yeah, finding a bit of inspiration every day.
If you don't mind, I would just put one thing in before we open this up is whether it's today or a different day, I think a reheat of the 7 weeks would be useful. So just more of a, here's where we started and here's where we ended. But in a good pace, not to redo everything, but just to kind of summarize it and connect it together.
Sure. Yeah. I think in that vein, and I know, Jeffrey, you have, and I think some of the others of you have also done so, but on the website, if you go to programs, you click on the only one that shows, even though I've got several more in there, the only one that shows or is visible, you'll be able to join that, and it's the written version of each of the lessons laid out in the weekly progression, just like we had done, except you'll find that there's more, I guess, more content, things I forgot to touch on. Yeah, like, for example, I realized when I was writing up lesson 5, I think it was, that completely forgot to mention how important it is to develop an attitude in yourself of an awareness that you are not permanent in this form, right? That the day will come when you die. That was so important. I had a note of it. Don't forget, Pierce, don't forget to talk about this. And of course, whatever comes in, and needs to have its go. So, okay. Let's do that. For that sort of thing, I'll likely want to spend a bit more time preparing for such an event.
Okay.
So let's put that on the table for next week. Okay. It'll be the condensed version of the core lessons 1 through 7.
Yes. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. By the way, when the meeting ends today, after I stop recording, but before we all hang up, someone please remind me about something I want to have a quick chat about, okay? All right, great. Okay, so noted. Jeffrey?
Okay, great.
What's new? What's live? Anyone? If you don't do it, I'm going to run.
Hey, Pierce. I had a this last week. When was it? I think it was midweek. I had a kind of, it was starting to get it's very hot here, and I was kind of working out in my yard, in my garden, and my head was kind of very there's things going on in my head that were subtle. And actually, I was thinking of you. I had you came up in my mind, but it kind of grew, this head thing, this head thing, and in the following day, I was absolutely.
What day was this?
I think it was like Wednesday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No, actually, yeah, Wednesday, Thursday. I was okay on Friday, but just a massive storm in my head. I didn't know whether it was dehydration because of the heat or whether it was just something, but the following yesterday, I felt quite energized afterwards. So I was thinking, well, maybe I wasn't sure what the heck it was, but I thought some kind of download from something. It's certainly had it was very strong, and I thought I was going to die. I thought, okay, if this is it, I'm okay with it, because it was just so rough. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I understand. I've been there a few times. So let me put a bit of a flavor to the potencies that are trying to get in right now into this work. The other day, have you ever had one of these just really profound moments where for just seconds, right, the whole universe all of a sudden makes sense, and then it just sort of fades a little bit, right? And you're like, where was that, right? Try to go capture it, go catch it. Yeah. I had one of those moments the other day, and it was triggered, I think, by a series of thoughts. The first thought had to do with the idea of Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3, and maybe even Model 4, right? And actually, let's provide some context. Jeffrey, may I pick on you to give a quick Model 1, Model 2, Model 3, and then I'll pick this up, yeah? You know the references?
Wow. It's been so long since I've heard those terms.
Well, listen, let's start here. Start from the standpoint of, do you agree, yes or no, that humans are continually able to access different parts of themselves and different parts of the knowings of creation?
Yes.
Have you found that to be the case?
Yes.
Okay.
Both individually and collectively.
Right. Exactly. So now Model 1, let's start there. Let's just say, we've sort of added up in this engagement that there has been thus far 3 models, or you might even say 2.5, right? Model 1, what was the nature of Model 1, human?
If I recall, it was in the territory of, survival, right?
Yeah.
This basic functioning, respiration, eating and excreting, basic thought, just to get, survive.
Tell me how Merlin fits into that. I'm really going to stretch us today.
Okay. Well, all right. So just take a guess on that. Is that for things that there wasn't a rational explanation for, it had to do with the gods. It had to do with, it was categorized into things of, really fundamentally magic.
But kind of, but a magic of a different kind. You see, one of the aspects of the character Merlin, right, in the Arthurian legends and stories and whatnot, is that he was so wise because he was traveling backwards in time. In other words, he was born an old man and was going in this direction while everyone was going this way, right? And so by the end of his life, he crawled back in the womb and disappeared. Yeah. But what's the real meaning of that in the context of, say, Model 1, Model 2, and Model 3? You're right so far, by the way. Model 1 was very much survival. I would actually put it this way, though. I would say Model 1 learned to control mass or matter. Okay, that was the chief, what would you call it? Yeah, not feature, because that's a differently used word in this work, but one of the chief elements of what Model 1 was able to accomplish. Yeah, the classic example, right? A dog can watch its owner, master, companion, whatever you want to call it, come in every single day and light a fireplace and warm up the place, and the dog will lay in front of the fireplace and enjoy that warmth. But it will never make that transition, will it, of being able to start the fire itself. It can see it 1,000 times, but it'll never make that transition because it's a fixed model. You see, it's fixed at the level of not being able to yet control matter. Actually, that's not controlling matter. That's a bad example. That's controlling energy, which would be Model 2, right? But yeah, carry on. Okay, so you're getting the sense of it. Everyone's getting the sense of this idea of, we've talked about the concept of a new permission being released onto the planet. Yeah. So Model 1, controlled mass, controlled matter, built things,
Right.
carved out structures, yeah, fell trees and made mud and made bricks with mud and straw and whatnot. Yeah. What's Model 2? Let's go from that angle. What does Model 2 control? If you were paying attention, you'd have it already.
So
you said energy already.
Energy.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah. But I was going to come out also with, it's kind of like a more advanced thought, which, so it's a connection or a method of controlling energy.
Okay. So now you're kind of onto something. It doesn't go click, 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 Model 1, Model 2, Model 3. All right. In a Model 1 ecology, there are those that are Model 2 prone. In other words, someone's making bricks with mud and straw, okay? And another fella comes along and says, well, if we light this fire and we bake those, they become stronger and harder and they're more suitable for, making our buildings, okay? And to the Model 1s, who is just working with molding matter, molding material, that's brilliant, right? And they become the magicians, the ones who can start the fires and the ones who can control energy, but they are Model 2 prone, you see, because one of the features of Model 2 is really the ability to control energy. Yeah. And we see that. We saw its like kind of full disclosure in the Industrial Revolution type of era. Yeah. And being able to split the atom, for crying out loud, releasing tremendous amounts of energy. You understand? So that's a Model 2. Those are the Merlins, by the way, because what they do is they take the future and they bring it into the past. Okay, so that people in whatever mode that they're in at that point in time are able to benefit from it. All right, so we sit at Model 2 now, where we can control both matter and energy. What is Model 3? Or what would be a Model 3 proneness?
Say clairvoyance.
You're on the right track. It's broader than that, but yeah.
It's a connection.
Like consciousness or controlling thought.
You got it. Yes, sir, you've got it. Yep. Consciousness. Imagine a society. We won't start with individuals with this, but imagine a society that is able to control consciousness in the way that Model 2s can control energy to affect mass. In other words, someone who is able to control consciousness in such a way that they influence energy that then influences mass or matter. You see, that's one of the main features. And this is one aspect that science, for whatever reason, hasn't gotten to yet. They haven't understood the connection, right? Good old Einstein jotted down the equation E equals mc squared. That's a very, very high end of the bar Model 2 aspect where he was able to kind of see through the veil of all of it and say, ah, right, matter and energy are equivalent. They're the same thing. I'm going to keep taking runs at this from multiple directions, okay, until it all kind of clicks together for you, for all of you and me. What's the definition of a point? A point, as in geometry, geometric point. Doesn't have to be the dictionary definition, just
start thinking dimensions, and that's a single dimension.
it's what?
A single dimension. If it's literally a point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It has no dimension, right? We have to draw it like that.
Yeah.
Can you hear me from here, by the way? I couldn't get my little clip on mic to work.
Yes.
Okay. We have to draw it like that, but in reality, when you conceptualize, or when you get rid of the conceptualization of it and just go back to the fundamental nature of a point, it has no dimension, none whatsoever. It has no height, no width, no depth. Okay. And peculiarly, oh God, that's a hard word. Enough. We define a line as a series of points, right? And now suddenly a line apparently has direction. Apparently it has dimensionality. Well, let me ask you this. Okay, and then we call a surface a number of lines, all kind of mashed together. But here's the question that, if you get to the heart of it, will lead you where you need to go with this, okay? How can this or this come from this? In other words, this is basically nothing. You see? That's nothing. We draw it, but it can't really be drawn. How?
Yeah.
How do you get to this and correspondingly to something like this from something that doesn't exist?
Well, because the point is both nothing and everything at the same time.
Okay, that sounds very Lao Tzu of you.
Okay, yeah. So,
yeah,
right. So if there's, not the point that you're on the board, but the point.
the point. Yeah.
The point. It's a nothing because there's nothing to measure against it, and it's an everything because within that point everything else unfolds. So in the example of
behind it,
right, well, in intelligence and consciousness,
there you go. You see, and that's the part that science has never gotten to just yet, right? Has not yet gotten to, I will say, is that we say, okay, matter is actually just composed of energy. I mean, you can think about this another way, can't you? You can say, now, right? And now passes, and now passes. And yet you can look at the lifeline of the events that occur in a series of nows, which if you try to take now and chop it in half and then chop now in half again and again and again and again, you end up with the idea that now must be a point with no dimensions. How does a bunch of nows make a lifeline? It's the same thing, right? There's something deeper. There's something beyond it. Now, how do you know that, though? Do you know that, actually? Is there something beyond that point? Yeah, you understand? Energy creates this piece of chalk. We call it matter, all right? Beyond energy, there's something else. What if, just like if I were to cause a nuclear reaction, right, bombard this with a certain kind of radiation, and break its material structure and form, I would end up with a massive amount of energy. What if then I put all that energy into a box, a little energetic box, and applied something else to it? a massive amount of consciousness or a massive amount of something, right? To release the consciousness within it. You understand where I'm going with this? Now you're getting that, oh wow. You're getting that sort of feeling of like it almost all makes sense. You understand? At that moment. See, this is what's in store for the future for humanity. So my question to you is, are you Model 3 prone? Hmm? You know, when do you suppose the ability to be Model 3 prone actually showed up on the planet? Do you have an idea? Who was one? Can you think? Do you know who Paracelsus is? Yeah, I think I'm saying it right. Okay. Or do you know alchemy? The idea of alchemy. That's a Model 3 proneness. Yeah, and it saw its heyday in what, the 1500s roughly, where the idea wasn't just that, if I take this hunk of copper and I try to make it silver, and I take the silver and I try to make it gold. They had the processes worked out. Some of them actually succeeded, yeah, but it wasn't. This is where the philosophers love to play around with this idea, because they say, oh no, it was all about spiritual development, yeah. But I'll tell you something, it wasn't just about that. They could actually do it too in physical form. Now, you don't have to believe this because you have no evidence to say so, but I want you to think about the possibility of that, because I don't know. I mean, how do you make any bit of matter? You toss a couple of neutrons, you toss a couple of protons, and you toss a couple of electrons at it, right? And if you have the ability to rearrange how those interact with each other, then you can come up with, gold or skin or hair or pretty much anything you want, right? You're down to the fundamental building blocks. So yeah, I mean, why is it not possible? I ask. Yeah, just because chemists can't do it at this moment. Do you know why they can't do it?
Lower levels of consciousness.
Yeah, they're too far down the chain, right? It's just like no matter how much mechanical force I put on this piece of chalk, I can grind it, I can pound it, I can throw it around the room, I can do any kind of thing to it kinetically. It's never going to cause a nuclear reaction in it, is it? It's never going to revert back to its fundamental state of energy, right? Now, if you didn't know that nuclear reactions were possible, you would think, that's baloney. It's not within the realms of believability because it hasn't been done. Why? See, the real alchemists, the real ones, I'm talking about the ones, 1500s, 1400s, 1200s, all the way back in time. Not all the way back. It's a misstatement. Quite a ways back. If it was just a psychological process, then tell me why they had laboratories. Actual physical laboratories, with beakers and sulfur and mercury and salt and all of these, all these types of things. Why did they have those if it was just a spiritual transformation?
My ponder is that that maybe it was more accessible in earlier days and they lost the technology.
Well, so that's again a Model 3 proneness coming into play, though.
Yeah.
Now, you're right about one thing, because Egypt, where it started, right? The Kemet, which is where we get chemistry and all this. They're kind of like Merlin in that they were bringing the future into the past in order to give humanity a chance. Okay. Now, I won't go into this, the reason why at this point in time that they needed to do that, but I'll sum it up by saying we had a tremendous, terrible accident. Humanity did. way early on in our early stages of development, which created problems. Yeah. And those problems necessitated something else to come in to kind of act as an ointment to the process. And we're still suffering today from this big calamity that happened. But yeah, the function of Egypt, the reason why Egypt is actually so difficult to connect to is because people are looking in the wrong place for it. They're looking in the past for Egypt, when the reality is Egypt was a future thing going backwards in time.
You have me curious about the, the accident and such. Is that the genetics that you're referring to?
It part of the resolution was genetics.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to talk about many abstract
Yeah,
things today.
yeah.
We're not generally in a position to prove it at this point in time. So I'm going to preface it by saying some of this is going to be a bit out there until or unless you get the chance to. Okay. But if you go out to some other Earth-like system that happens to develop life, and it's at a stage of conscious evolution where you could call it human life, do you think it's going to look like you?
Not necessarily.
Okay, why do you say not necessarily? You're spot on. I want to know your reason there.
Okay, so surface, I'm thinking out loud. So part of it would be environmental, that they may have a different environment and ecology, of which just plain old, Darwinism needs to adjust. But origins and consciousness, right, is different functions. So it's a different planet in a different planetary system with a different sun, presumably. And it requires a whole different it's a whole different design to be a living organism on that particular planet to perform particular functions for that planet and larger engagement.
Yes. Let me ask you this. Would you be able to find something similar to it on our planet?
I think there's a reasonable chance of finding, and using the word similar, yes.
Yeah.
Because that fits the idea of fractals.
Yeah. I talked about the scary bird thing. You all familiar with that? I think maybe it was in a one-on-one meeting. Yeah. There's this bird, a crow, I think it was, right? They're very intelligent, but it died recently. It was the first animal ever recorded to have a sense of self-awareness and to actually demonstrate a sense of self-awareness. It was a lab bird. Could have been, I think it was a parrot actually, but anyway, it was a lab bird, and they decided to teach this lab bird colors. Yeah, colors. And they could point to a color, an apple, say, what color is that? Red, what's that? Blue, and all that. And then at one point in time, without any prompting whatsoever, it asked, what color am I? Right? It was able to take that abstract idea and apply it to itself. In other words, it became somewhat sentient, self-aware. You can look it up. It's on Google. Now, scientists look at that and go, wow, that's incredible. Birds are much smarter than we thought. A man like me looks at that and it scares the daylights out of me. The reason why is because the planet is already experimenting with giving human consciousness to other creatures. All right. That should be a chilling thought, because it means that the planet is already questioning whether humans are future viable. Yeah. Now, you understand, we serve a function on this planet, but we are not the only equipment capable of doing so. We just happen to be the most recent iteration of what has been given the permission. People think that they're so smart, but I will tell you this, the second the planet removes that permission and gives it to parrots or dolphins or something that is already kind of in the queue, to take on that thing, all of humanity will instantly revert to the dog that can't light the fire anymore. Okay, it's not you who's smart. I mean, you are, right? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you don't process this, but the fact of the matter is that that is a grace and a grant from creation, from the planet. Now, the way it works in other systems is just like that. Yeah, you might meet now. There are scads and scads and scads of different blueprints. Right. This is why when you get some Looney Tune on, the television saying that he was captured by aliens and and all this time. I mean, most of the time it's not true, but they're reptilians. They're lizard-like, or they're bird-like, or they're something else like. It's because the creation itself has a bucket full of patterns that it can go, yeah, that pattern will work, right, to be able to accommodate human consciousness. What I mean by human consciousness is more abstract than the kind of consciousness that is possible inside this pentagrammic form and shape. All right, think of it more abstract than that. Think of it as your, I mean, what does Homo sapien mean, right? Doesn't it mean like intelligent ape or something like that? Yeah, it's ape plus something, Homo sapien sapiens plus something, yeah, this kind of intelligence. It's the sapien part that can move around. The Homo part doesn't. Why did I bring that up? I was on about this idea of Model 3 proneness. Yeah. The planet's already ready for the next step. It just needs someone to take it up for her. And the interesting thing about having a human level of consciousness, or that I'll call it sapien from this point in time, is that it's an opt-in situation. You see, we always said in the Eminent that animals are fixed. They're only fixed because they haven't been given that dose of sapien. Yeah? They can soon become that way, probably almost overnight, to be honest. It happens that fast. You know this about evolution. It's never gradual. Yeah? Scientists have been racking their brains looking for the missing links between one species and another. I mean, ever since they got the idea that that's how it worked. And they haven't found a single one of them. They always think they do, and then 10 years later it gets debunked, and it's just a jawbone from a yak or something. But but
Here's
speaking,
let me make sure that I understand this. It's like when
yeah.
when you originally asked about when was level 3 proneness available, I was thinking in antiquity, like in antiquity as in 5,000 years ago. The Indians or the Persians or the Sumerians or the Latin Americans, Aztecs or whatever. But I think what you're now saying is that it's not an antiquity. It's been there from creation, from the very beginning. And
Yes.
and different attempts have been made in humanity to try to get to level 3 in different ways. The Aztecs thought human sacrifice was the way to do it. The Indians thought, or the Egyptians thought, sun worship was the way to do it. Blah blah blah. Now we know it didn't work, because how we are trying to achieve this, it doesn't work, because we're going at it from a very Einsteinish scientific, E equals to mc square way. Similar approaches are like this. Similar opportunity for sentience is going to be available on every possible world, every possible ecology that allows biochemistry. Might not even be biochemistry. It might be mechanical chemistry. It could be machines that become artificial. So to your point of saying, hey, is there something like a different planet? Is there something like humans on a different planet? It's like zero. It's almost guaranteed, but almost not guaranteed. Like it all depends on how that ecology, what opportunities that ecology presents.
You're spot on, especially with the idea that you fill into it as opposed to become it. All right. Give you an example. Like every snowflake that has ever existed throughout all of time, at least on this planet, has been 6-pointed. And they've all looked different, haven't they? But they always are 6-pointed. Now, how do they know to be 6-pointed? they fill the template of what it means to be a snowflake. There's no 5-pointed snowflake here on the planet. There's no 2-pointed snowflake. They're all 6s, but they're all different. But it says that there is a blueprint for what it means to be a snowflake that is pre-existent from the event of a snowflake itself. Right? It's the same thing with humanity and human consciousness. That's why I began today saying, you know, what about model 4? Right? Because to just say or think that it stops at 3 is really to put a halter, like a horse's halter, on God and creation. Yeah, to be able to bridle and rein it in. And so I guess where I'm going with this is that the idea of personal development, this quote unquote personal development journey that we're all on, is so much less about trying to do something or get something, and more about being open and responsive to what can already happen. You know? As a human developer, as a personal developer, I should say, you all personal developers, it's no use trying to personally develop into a snowflake, be it 5, 6, 7, or 2 points whatsoever. It's not in your template of expression. It's more important to find out what it really means to be human and sapient, and then allow yourself to grow out into that. Yeah. It's kind of a weird thing, right? Because when you get past the idea of at the very tip of the ray of creation, there's not time. Yeah, there's a boundary beyond which there's time, and so this is where kind of our human logic breaks down. But you need to understand that the ray of creation is also a reciprocal maintenance process. What I mean by that is that there's not. They used to draw the ray of creation. No, my chalk. Yeah. I don't want red or blue or yellow. They used to draw the ray of creation more like a tree, where you've got branches coming out, and then you've got sub branches. You know, and of course, the moon would be like the leaf at the very end of the tree. That's a probably almost a better, more sane way to visualize or conceptualize the idea of the ray of creation. I see I have glare, don't I? You're kind of unable to see that chalkboard very well, right? Yeah. Let me try and help with that. All right, come back to me. Okay, good.
Okay.
Is that any better? That might help. Meh. All right, I'll figure out the logistics of this in time.
It's not bad. You can see it.
Yeah, okay. The reason why this do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, si, do type of arrangement is somewhat convenient is because it's easier to draw a line up and down. Okay, we've got the shock here, right, where things don't typically pass except through will alone. And I've said this before, that you get down to the planetary level in all of this, and it's kind of, this is where the reciprocal maintenance happens, where, you know, you have something like a mineral that then grows. Well, the permission was already there, obviously, for a mineral to grow, or it wouldn't have been able to. But the fact that it did grow into whatever shape that it was templated to do so gets pushed back up the ray of creation, and it's a feedback. And God in creation, he, she, it, the absolute, whatever, yeah, goes, right, I understand that now. Now let's try it this way, you see. And you get these various stages. Otherwise, the planet would have always been exactly as it is today. Yeah, there was a point in time when the best God could do here was single cell organisms. Yeah, and then it invented the sponge, and it cleaned up the sink with the sponge. No, it didn't. It invented the sponge, multicellular organisms. I should say single cell organisms all working together. You see, that's an evolutionary step, or a step in consciousness over what a single cell organism can do on its own. And then I said, wow, that's interesting. What if we make them one unit and they work together? And then you have legitimate multicellular organisms like plants and whatnot, with cells now beginning to fill certain functions within the organism instead of all being identical to one another. And just it's no longer about their position and place that makes their function. It's about how they are intrinsically in and of themselves. You see, so it's this kind of up and down the ray of creation. But the reason why I drew it as a tree is because that's here. That's our ray of creation. We share a common trunk and common roots, but this leaf and this leaf over here belong to different rays. Okay, so there are multiple rays of creation. It's not the ray of creation. We should probably rewrite all the archives that say the ray of creation, yeah, to say our ray of creation or a ray of creation that we happen to be in today. Yeah.
So I just want to maybe see if I got this pulling together. Is going back to the question of life on other planets.
Yeah.
We would say that the conscious life on other planets would have their own ray of creation. They'd be another leaf on that tree.
Yes, but the template for it lives up there, up the bar. You see, and so to get back to this idea, they could look like you or I, yeah, or they could look like a dolphin, or they could look like a sponge, or they could look like dinosaurs. See, the problem, honestly, had it not been for a giant meteor collision and whatnot, we might all be 40, 50 feet tall and looking like dinosaurs, but still having the same conversation. Yeah. that line died out.
Have to be a big
need a bigger piece of chalk, that's for sure, right? And my tiny arms. Hard to tie your shoes.
Yes.
Yeah, you see, so that's, I guess that's what I'm trying to get across, is that there are these creational templates. Yeah, I mean, I'm very happy that we have finally discovered that we are not in a geocentric universe, back in the 1500s and whatnot. Curiously enough, the Egyptians absolutely knew that we were heliocentric for our system, and that we also orbited the great star, which has been mistaken for Sirius. They talk a lot about Sirius. It got mistranslated a long time ago. They were talking about the core of the universe at that point, but they absolutely knew it. Pythagoras absolutely knew it. He talked about it, and then it was also suppressed. And then, who was it? Copernicus, right? He gets all the credit. By golly, this is heliocentric. Yeah, but the ancients actually knew it. And then we lost it. This is the evidence that I was talking about for the future seeding the past. And it also ties into the reason why beyond a certain level there isn't time. Yeah. Let me put it this way. We've talked about this idea of reincarnation before, and generally speaking, in the culture or in society, or the metaphysical culture, I should say, people think, they're born, they live, they keel over and die, and then they're born again, and it just keeps going forward and forward and forward and forward and forward in time, right? And so this is why you've got 4,000 Cleopatras running around the planet today. But it doesn't work that way. Usually, actually, it doesn't work that way. It can work many different ways. Sometimes you can be born right back into your life. Yeah. April 3rd, 1972, all over again. Die right back into it. Die back into it. You see, that's called recurrence within your own life. You can do that. Or you can have a life like this right now and keel over and get incarnated into 7,000 BC when they're, doing the Egyptian thing or Sumerian thing. But what do you bring with you? You see, if you can do that, well, you can go either way, don't you see? But if you can do that, you can also bring some of that intelligence of what it means to be a Model 2 or 3 or Model 3 prone or a 4 back with you. Now, why would you do that? This gets into the chilling idea of the fact that if you hit a certain level of conscious development in the time slice that you're in, you have a choice of what to do with it when you die. All right. Now, good luck if you go into the future 100,000 years or something like that, right? Because then you'll likely be pretty much a blockhead hopefully compared to where everyone's at that point in time. Yeah. But you can go back into the past and you can do what? Be in service to humanity. This is where you get the various different, what would I call maybe classes of people, but not class in a hierarchical standpoint, but categories of people. You know? Some folks are here in service to humanity. Yeah. Each and every one of you. I'm not talking about myself, okay? It's everyone's own private business. But I'll tell you, Leo was. And the things that he brought back were pretty extraordinary, I would say, in many respects. Yeah. And think of what you can do, though. Isn't that amazing, right? You die tomorrow, and you go, you know what? Egypt could use another helper, right? To set a better print for humanity. Now, if that's possible, you run into this paradox of, is our history actually what we think it is? Because I mean, that indicates a fluidity of history, doesn't it? If I keel over tomorrow and decide to go serve ancient Egypt, yeah, hopefully I'll make an impact. And when we meet again in this life, we won't be having the same conversations. We'll be having better ones. This goes all over the place. Have you ever thought about the ramifications of if that's an actuality? What it actually means for humanity. This means that you can develop here and now and be in service to creation by helping your fellows do the same thing. Okay, I'm going to be quiet for a minute, just see how that sits with everybody. Now you're starting to have that moments. I can see it in all each of you.
Sounds like it fundamentally boils down to choice.
Well, yes, if you can.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you can. That's the thing. It's not guaranteed. Just because someone says, I wish to develop, it's like this. I wish to make bread. Okay, what ingredients do you have? Well, let's see. I've got a little bit of dirt. I've got some, pepper. I've got an old jar of mustard. Right? Yeah. So this is how people treat spirituality these days, though, right? They think, just because I'm me means that I can develop and can, right? That sort of thing. No, what's really required is going and getting the right ingredients for it. Yeah. And what are those ingredients? They're called what we talk about all the time. They're called these essential qualities. And we've even got a list of some of the better ones of them, being care, patience, understanding, humility, hope, belief, charity, radiate life. Yeah, all those. Right? We have ingredients of how to make a human, and not some monster, not some monstrosity. But you're right. It does come down to choice. But do you see that it's more than that? You also have to have the ability.
Yeah, it kind of also points to a potency of force.
Potency is not yours, though. Do you think it is? If you think it is, let's argue this.
Yeah, no, it feels like it's borrowed.
Yeah, it is borrowed.
Right. So there's a consciousness that, is one can develop oneself to, and then you access potencies.
Can I tell you the real danger in that, though?
Okay.
The fact of the matter is, for example, the more conscious I become, the less conscious you become. Not you specifically.
Yeah.
But did you know that that's how it works?
Could you repeat that Because
Yeah. The more conscious I become, for example, the less conscious you could become.
I have the reference in Gurdjieff, but I never quite put that together.
What's the reference then?
So if there's, for example, 50 units of force available, right? It can either one person can claim 50 units of force, meaning that there's 0 units for anyone else, but it's incredible potency, or 50 people get 1 unit of force and it's more dispersed potencies.
Right. Now, stay put.
I mean, I kind of don't quite get it, because and if you make it sound like it's a zero-sum game, but it's not. Right?
Well, listen, the proof of it is that you look up in the sky at night and it's black, not white. Do you know what that actually means? I dropped my chalk. Do you know what that means? The fact that you look up at the, you see stars, of course, but basically the night sky is black. Do you know what that means? Means that the universe has an end. The reason why it means the universe has an end is because if it was limitless, boundless, every line of sight that you would look up to in the heavens would eventually terminate in a point of light. Right? It doesn't. It terminates in blackness, meaning that somewhere there's an edge. And if there's an edge, then somewhere, then you can say that the universe is quantified. There's a specific quantity of everything, at least in our universe. We don't know if there's other bubbles out there. Yeah, do you understand? So, consciousness must be quantifiable. So what's the trick? Now we're playing around with time, okay? What's the trick? I brought this over here for a reason, if I can actually light it. You see, this is a forward time process. This is spending energy. This is your life, for example. All right, and this energy is dissipating into the room in the form of heat, light, a little bit of sound even. Okay, I'll let it go out. Now, if instead of me moving forward through my life as I do, I was moving backwards in my life, what would that mean for the match itself? That would mean that it gains energy instead of loses energy. You see, forward direction time is dissipative of energy, dissipative of everything, dissipative of consciousness, dissipative of all of it. You see, if scientists ever get so clever as to build a time machine, that means free energy, because you can borrow energy from now and put it into the past. But what I'm trying to tell you is that we already do this with conscious development. Yeah. Here's the problem. We're all in this together. In reality, it's very easy to see all of us as separate entities, Sachin is there, Kimberly's there, I'm here, you see. But on another level, we're not. We're part of an organism called organic life on the planet. And just like the blood flows through your body and nourishes certain cells and is taken away from other cells, and certain cells die and certain cells are born and have more energy than others, this is what organic life on the planet is. It's all connected in this way, you see. But we have this amazing ability. If you hack it, if you want to say, if you can hack it in this life, you can actually take something back with you. Forget about taking it forward with you. Let the people now who are trying to get there take something forward with them. You actually have the ability to help humanity and change the past, rewrite history. We talk about this. We've talked about this in the Eminent. I don't think it's ever been added up this way before. To go in and actually rewrite your own history. This is what it can do. It's one of its capabilities. So, do you want a practical exercise? Yeah. Take anything that you wish to change about yourself and discover where in the heck you got it to begin with. Let's say you're an irritable soul. I tend to be an irritable soul. Uh, take whatever aspect it is, and first, figure out where you got it. Where did I pick this up? Yeah. And then the second thing you do is consciously reincarnate to that point in time and take it away, nullify it, go back. Yeah. If you do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying like die and reincarnate and try again. I'm saying close your eyes, go back and fix it. This is how development actually is much easier. Now we're taking the microcosm and applying it to the macrocosm. When you die, maybe I'll see you all in Egypt, or here for that matter. Maybe you are coming back from a distant point in the future. But as a more conscious version of you. Yeah, you can do it on the small scale and you can do it on the large scale. I don't have a big, close your eyes, take 3 deep breaths, etc., etc., etc. But now is a really good time to practice reincarnating into your past. Who here has not ever had this thought at some point in time in their life of, if I could only go back in time with the wisdom that I have today and change those aspects of my past? The reason why every single one of you have had this is because it is a very real human skill. You just haven't dared to do it. That's the problem. Or maybe you have, you see. I'm not casting judgments. I'm just saying most people wish for it, but don't ever actually try and do it. You can.
I want to debate this a moment.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, because I have one. There's one pivotal moment that was a huge feature in the design of who I am today.
Yeah.
And I've done an exercise like this, if not this, and went back and observed myself at that pivotal moment. And then I recognized if I could change it, I wouldn't.
Okay, but guess what? You neutralized it by that very insight as well.
Okay.
So let's go deeper into this, right? It's not just about going back and going, muckety muckety muck. I changed it, and now my life is completely different, and I don't even remember that event. It's actually about positive, negative, neutral. All right. You know why people get stuck. It's because they lack the neutral vector for something. All right. The classic example that I've given many times is people who develop adult trauma based on, or adult PTSD, if you will, based on childhood trauma. Take an example of an abused kid, which happens so much in our culture. Now, on the positive vector of this triangle, do you need me to draw a triangle? I can do it, or you can just picture it. But on the positive vector of this triangle, you've got an instinctive knowing that parents are supposed to love and protect their children, right? Every human knows this, day one. Then in the negative vector, you have, but this parent beats the crap out of me, right? And then in the neutral vector, there's nothing. And so what happens, because there's nothing in the neutral vector and the psyche can't stand this kind of polarization, is it pulls in the most obvious scenario that it can think of, which oftentimes is, I must be bad. I must be a horrible person, right? For them to not, because all that's trying to do is to neutralize it. Yes, they love me. Yes, they beat me, but I'm bad. Yes, they love me. Yes, they beat me, but I'm bad. You see? Now that creates a loop, and it at least keeps you from going crazy, hopefully, right? But it may not be the most successful loop for your life. What if you can go back with the, if you were an abused child, for example, if you could go back with the intelligence you have as you right now and rewrite that? You see, you're not getting rid of the facts of the matter. You're not getting rid of the cosmic fact that your, parents should love you, nor are you getting rid of the factual fact that they beat you, but you're replacing the neutralizing vector with something more useful. Okay, and that is whatever the explanation is. You see, you can have more wisdom though about it. Yeah, and this explains it from another standpoint too, right? Because there are scads and scads and scads of children out there, or adults, I should say, that were abused as children, but are perfectly fine, right? Perfectly normal, healthy, happy. They don't beat their own children. None of that. Yeah. And what's the reason for that? Probably because either they did this kind of work or they just had a different neutral vector as children. They were able to negate that in a healthier way. You know, where on earth they got that is hard to say, but there's just as many out there that do. Does that help, Jeffrey?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the important thing is, yeah, it's the neutral vector. You're not trying to get rid of what happened, like in your example, to not, to change as your parents abused you. It's that you're applying, assuming you aged and been conscious, and applying an updated intelligence to the circumstance.
Yeah. Yeah. But now, are you seeing the as above, so below aspect in this? You probably now recognize, if you haven't already, that you can do this in your own current life. If you can do this in your own current life, why can't you go rewrite the neutral vector of history itself when you die? Yeah. And I will tell you this, there's been many, many people who have done that. And if you could jump into another timeline and see what the world would be like without that capability, you would be horrified. All right. You might look at the world now and say, wow, this place is kind of bad news. And it is in some respects. Not as bad as it could be. I'm telling you, not as bad as it could be. Generally, I don't like to talk about all these things that can't be readily proved. So I just want to put this sense of sanity back into it, that these are just things to think about, okay? These are things to mull over in yourself. And this is not doctrine. This isn't, believe this. It's just a different way of looking at something. And if you find it useful, then you find it useful.
Yeah.
Right. I'm looking at each of you. All right. Yeah. I think it's time. Let's go ahead and wrap it up. Yeah. Was this useful today?
Amazing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay. Yeah, all over the place, but whatever. We get those sometimes, yeah. This is what happens when I don't come into it with a lesson plan. And we missed all kinds of things too, didn't we, along the way? Huh?
It's so important.
No, we had the meeting that we were supposed to have, right?
Yeah. Right. And given the opportunity, if I did miss anything, I'll just reincarnate back in and we'll do it better.
Yeah, there we go. We'll just fix it. We'll fix it in the next live.
Fix it in the next life. That's right. I'm going to stop recording now.
Yes.
And thank you all so much. Please hang on the line, okay? All right.